From now on, I want your paycheck sent to my account." Those were the words my son, Daniel, spoke to me that Thursday afternoon, his voice so casual it might have been a suggestion about the weather. He sat across from me at my own kitchen table, sipping coffee from the mug I'd bought him years ago, as if he were doing me a favor. I stared at him, searching his face for a hint of a joke, a flicker of the boy I'd raised alone, the boy I'd fed with the sweat of my brow. But there was nothing, just that calm, confident smile, the look of someone who knows he's in control. I didn't answer right away. I just let the silence stretch between us, heavy and awkward, while I tried to understand how we'd gotten here. Why would my own son, the child I'd sacrificed everything for, ask for total access to my bank account? I remembered the nights I'd worked double shifts, the years I'd gone without so he could have what he needed. I remembered the birthday parties I'd thrown on a shoestring, the sneakers I'd bought instead of groceries, the way I'd told myself that love and sacrifice would be enough to build something unbreakable between us. But now, at 62, I sat across from a man who looked at me not with love, but with calculation. "It's for your own good, Mom," Daniel said, his tone gentle, patronizing. "You don't need to worry about bills or money anymore. I'll take care of everything. You can just relax." He reached across the table and patted my hand, as if I were a child, as if I hadn't spent my whole life taking care of him. I nodded, my throat tight. "If you think that's best," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. His smile widened, satisfied. He stood, pressed a quick, mechanical kiss to my forehead, and told me not to worry. "I'll handle it all. You just enjoy yourself." The words hung in the air long after he left, echoing in the empty kitchen. I sat there, staring at the faded wallpaper, the chipped plates, the reminders of a life built on hard work and quiet resilience. I felt something inside me crack. Not sadness, not fear, but a cold, clear resolve. That evening, as every Friday, Daniel returned, this time with his wife, Julia. They arrived expecting dinner. The table set, the house warm and welcoming, as it had been every week for years. I heard their footsteps in the hallway, the key turning in the lock, the door swinging open. And then I heard the scream, a high, desperate sound, the kind that makes your heart stop. Julia's voice, shrill and panicked, echoed through the house. "Daniel, where is everything? Where's the furniture? Where's the TV?" I stayed seated in the kitchen, my hands folded in my lap, listening to the chaos. Daniel burst in, his face pale, eyes wide with disbelief. "Mom, what did you do?" "Where is everything?" I looked at him calmly, feeling a strange sense of peace. "I sold a few things," I said softly. "I needed the cash. If you're going to handle my finances, I thought I should have some money on hand first." His face turned red with fury. He took a step toward me, and for the first time, I saw him not as my son, but as a stranger, someone who looked at me with contempt, with rage, with something dangerously close to hate. "You're crazy," he spat. "How could you do this without asking me? How are we supposed to be comfortable here?" That was the moment everything changed. Not how would I be comfortable, but how would they? Julia glared at me, her voice cold. "You're being selfish. We come here every week to keep you company, and this is how you repay us?" Selfish. Me, the woman who had given up everything for her son. Daniel stared at me as if I were a problem to be solved. "Maybe you're not in any condition to make decisions. Maybe you need more help than I thought." I stood, my voice steady. "There's no dinner tonight. If you're hungry, you can eat somewhere else." The silence was thick, heavy. Julia scoffed. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "You should be careful, Mom. You're alone now." "Remember that." They left, slamming the door behind them. I sat in my empty kitchen, feeling something inside me harden. But what Daniel didn't know was that he wasn't the first person in my life to mistake my silence for weakness. I'd learned long ago that sometimes the only way to survive was to keep your head down, to let people believe you were softer than you really were. That lesson had carried me through decades of hardship, heartbreak, and the kind of loneliness that seeps into your bones. I'd been underestimated before, by the world, by my late husband, even by my own children. But I'd always found a way to endure. My name is Maria Alvarez. I am 68 years old, a widow for nearly a decade, and despite what my son thinks, I am still working. 3 nights a week, I put on my faded blue scrubs and head to St. Agnes Hospital, where I've been a nurse for over 40 years. The work is hard, the hours long, but I find comfort in the routine, in the quiet dignity of caring for others. My hands are rough, my back aches, and my hair has turned silver, but I am proud of what I do. I am proud of who I am. I wasn't always alone. There was a time when my house was filled with laughter, with the clatter of dishes and the sound of children's feet running down the hallway. My husband Javier was a good man, gentle, patient, and endlessly optimistic. He believed in hard work and second chances, in the power of family to heal even the deepest wounds. We built a life together from almost nothing, scraping by on his construction wages and my nursing shifts, always dreaming of something better for our children. Daniel was our firstborn, a bright, curious boy with a stubborn streak that matched my own. He was the kind of child who asked 1,000 questions, who wanted to know how everything worked, who never accepted "because I said so" as an answer. I loved that about him, even when it made my life harder. I saw so much of myself in him, his determination, his pride, his fierce loyalty to the people he loved. Sophia came 3 years later, a quiet, thoughtful girl with her father's gentle eyes and a heart as big as the world. She was the peacemaker, the one who always tried to smooth things over when tempers flared. Sophia and Daniel were close as children, inseparable even. But as they grew older, something shifted between them. Daniel became more distant, more critical, while Sophia retreated into her books and her art, finding solace in the things she could control. Our family was never perfect, but we were close. We celebrated birthdays with homemade cakes, spent Sundays at the park, and gathered around the table every night for dinner, no matter how tired we were. I tried to teach my children the values that had carried me through life: honesty, kindness, resilience. I wanted them to know that no matter what happened, they could always count on each other. But life has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. When Javier died suddenly of a heart attack, our world was shattered. I remember the day with painful clarity, the phone call from the hospital, the drive through pouring rain, the sterile smell of the emergency room. I held his hand as the machines went silent, and in that moment I felt something inside me break. I was left alone with 2 grown children and a mountain of grief. Daniel took his father's death hard. He was 28, already living on his own, but he came back home for a while, trying to fill the void Javier had left behind. He threw himself into work, became more serious, more driven. He started making decisions for the family, sometimes without asking, as if he believed it was his responsibility to take control. I understood his need to protect us, but I never asked him to carry that burden. Sophia, on the other hand, drifted further away. She was 25, just starting her career as a teacher, and she struggled to process her grief. She and Daniel clashed constantly over money, over the house, over how to care for me. Their arguments grew sharper, more personal, until one day Sophia packed her things and left. She moved to another city, stopped answering Daniel's calls, and even now, years later, our conversations are strained and infrequent. I miss her every day, but I respect her need for distance. After Javier's death, I poured myself into my work. The hospital became my refuge, a place where I could lose myself in the needs of others. I worked extra shifts, saved every penny, and tried to keep the house running as best I could. Daniel visited often at first, always checking on me, always offering to help. But as time passed, his visits became less about me and more about what needed fixing, what bills needed paying, what decisions had to be made. He started talking to me like I was fragile, like I couldn't be trusted to manage my own affairs. I tried to brush it off, to remind myself that he meant well. But the more he insisted on taking control, the more I felt my independence slipping away. I'd spent my whole life fighting for dignity, for the right to make my own choices, and I wasn't ready to give that up, not for anyone, not even my son. What's at stake for me isn't just money or comfort. It's the life I've built, the values I've tried to pass on, the hope that one day my family might find its way back to each other. I want to believe that Daniel and Sophia can forgive each other, that we can sit around the table again and remember what it means to be a family. But with every passing year, that hope feels more distant. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder where things went wrong. Was it something I said? Something I failed to do? I replay old conversations, searching for the moment when the distance between us became a chasm. I think about Sophia's last words before she left. I can't do this anymore. Mom, I need to live my own life. I think about Daniel's insistence that he knows what's best for me. His refusal to see me as anything but someone to be managed. I never imagined it would come to this. I never imagined my own son would turn on me. But life has a way of testing you in the places you feel most secure. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of gray, drizzly day that makes the world feel smaller and lonelier. I had just come home from a long shift at the hospital, my feet aching, my mind still tangled in the worries of my patients. I was looking forward to a quiet cup of tea and maybe a phone call with Sophia if she answered. Instead, I found Daniel waiting for me in the living room. His jacket draped over the arm of the sofa, his phone glowing in his hand. He stood up as soon as I walked in, his face set in that determined expression I'd come to dread. "Mom, we need to talk," he said, and I felt my heart sink. I set my bag down, bracing myself. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I've been thinking about your finances. You're still working too hard, and I'm worried you're not managing things as well as you could. I want to help you, but I need you to trust me." I tried to smile to keep the peace. "I appreciate your concern, Daniel, but I've been taking care of myself for a long time." "I'm fine." He shook his head, his jaw tight. "You don't have to do this alone anymore. Let me take some of the burden. If you just sign this," he said, pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket, "I can have your paycheck deposited directly into my account. I'll handle the bills, the groceries, everything. You won't have to worry about a thing." I stared at the paper, my hands trembling. It was all so sudden, so final. I thought of the years I'd spent scraping by, the pride I'd felt in every dollar I earned. I thought of Javier, of how we'd promised each other we'd never let anyone else control our lives. But Daniel was insistent, his voice soft but unyielding. "It's for your own good, Mom. You're getting older. You deserve to rest." I wanted to argue, to tell him I wasn't ready to give up my independence. But the exhaustion of grief and years of struggle pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. I remembered Sophia's words, the way she'd accused me of always putting Daniel first, of never standing up for myself. Was she right? Had I made myself too easy to take advantage of? Daniel placed a pen in my hand, his eyes never leaving mine. "Please, Mom, trust me." The room felt colder, the walls closing in. I signed the paper, my signature shaky and uncertain. Daniel smiled, relief flooding his face. He hugged me, but it felt perfunctory, almost businesslike. "You won't regret this," he said, tucking the paper away. "I'll take care of everything." But as he pulled away, I saw something flicker in his eyes, something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't relief or gratitude. It was something darker, a shadow that passed quickly but left me unsettled. He gathered his things, already checking his phone, barely saying goodbye as he left. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the empty space where Javier used to sit. I felt a wave of guilt and shame, as if I'd betrayed not just myself, but the life we'd built together. I wondered what he would say if he could see me now, tired, alone, and handing over the last bit of control I had to our son. The days that followed blurred together. Daniel called often, always with questions about my accounts, my spending, my schedule. He started showing up unannounced, checking the mail, asking about my appointments. I tried to tell myself he was just being protective, but the feeling of being watched, of being managed, grew stronger with every visit. One afternoon, I overheard him on the phone in the hallway, his voice low and urgent. "No, she doesn't suspect anything. I've got it under control. Just a few more weeks and I'll have what I need." The words sent a chill through me. Who was he talking to? What was he hiding? I started to notice other things, too. Withdrawals from my account I didn't remember making, bills paid late, groceries that never seemed to last as long as they used to. Daniel always had an explanation, always brushed off my concerns with a smile. But the unease in my chest grew heavier, pressing against my ribs like a warning. I wanted to believe this was all for my benefit, that Daniel was just trying to help. But late at night, when the house was quiet, and the only sound was the ticking of the old clock on the wall, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake, if I'd handed over my life to someone I no longer truly knew. But Maria notices something odd in Daniel's behavior. And soon, the unease that had settled in her chest begins to grow roots. It starts with small things, a missing 20 from her purse, a bill that goes unpaid, a neighbor mentioning that Daniel was seen at the bank during hours Maria knew she was at work. At first, she tries to brush it off, telling herself she's just tired, that Daniel is simply trying to help in his own clumsy way. But the evidence piles up, and with each passing week, Maria feels the walls of her life closing in. Daniel's control becomes more suffocating. He insists on handling all her finances, telling her it's for her own good. He sets a strict budget for groceries, leaving her with barely enough to buy fresh fruit or the little treats she's always enjoyed. When she asks for a bit of extra cash to buy a birthday gift for a friend, he sighs and tells her she needs to be more responsible. "You're not working as much anymore, Mom. We have to be careful," he says. As if she's a child who can't be trusted with her own money. He starts showing up at the hospital, waiting for her in the parking lot after her shifts. At first she's touched, thinking he's worried about her walking home alone at night. But soon it becomes clear he's checking up on her, making sure she's really at work, really where she says she'll be. He asks about her co-workers, her schedule, even her patients. The questions are always wrapped in concern, but Maria feels the chill beneath the words. Her friends begin to notice the change. Rosa, her oldest friend from the hospital, invites her out for coffee, but Maria hesitates. She doesn't have the money, and she's embarrassed to admit it. When she finally agrees, Daniel calls her 3 times during the hour they're together, asking where she is, when she'll be home, if she needs a ride. Rosa gives her a look, one that's equal parts worry and suspicion. "Is everything all right, Maria?" she asks gently. Maria forces a smile and changes the subject. At home, the isolation deepens. Daniel encourages her to stop seeing certain friends, saying they're a bad influence or that they're taking advantage of her. He changes the passwords on her computer, saying it's for security. He even moves her phone charger to his room, so she has to ask him for it each night. The house that once felt warm and safe now feels like a cage. Maria tries to reach out to Sophia, dialing her number late at night when Daniel is asleep. The phone rings and rings before going to voicemail. She leaves a message, her voice trembling. "Sophia, it's Mom. I just wanted to hear your voice. I miss you." Days pass with no reply. When she finally gets a text, it's short and distant. "I'm busy, Mom. Hope you're okay." Maria clings to the hope that maybe, if she tries again, Sophia will answer. But the silence between them is heavy with old wounds. Flashbacks come to Maria in quiet moments. Memories of birthday parties with laughter and cake, of Sophia and Daniel playing in the backyard, of Javier's arms around her after a long day. She remembers the way Daniel used to run to her after school, his face lit up with excitement, and the way Sophia would curl up beside her with a book, content just to be near. Those memories feel like another life, a world that slipped away when she wasn't looking. Now the house is filled with tension. Daniel's wife, Julia, visits more often, her eyes cold and appraising. She makes little comments about the state of the house, the food Maria cooks, the way Maria dresses. "You should let Daniel handle things, Maria. It's easier for everyone," Julia says, her tone sweet but her meaning sharp. Maria feels herself shrinking, her confidence eroding with every visit. Daniel's own life seems to be unraveling, though he tries to hide it. He's on the phone constantly, his voice tense and hurried. He snaps at Julia, at Maria, even at the dog. Maria overhears arguments about money, about debts, about promises Daniel can't seem to keep. She finds unopened bills stuffed in drawers, notices that Daniel's car is missing for days at a time. When she asks, he brushes her off, saying he's handling it, that she doesn't need to worry. One evening, Maria finds Daniel in the kitchen, staring at a stack of papers with his head in his hands. He looks up, startled, and quickly shoves the papers into a drawer. "Just work stuff, Mom," he says, forcing a smile. But Maria sees the fear in his eyes, the desperation he tries so hard to hide. The gaslighting grows worse. Daniel tells her she's forgetful, that she's misplaced things, that she's confused about what day it is. He insists she's getting older, that she needs more help. Maria starts to doubt herself, wondering if maybe he's right, if maybe she really is losing her grip. But deep down, a small voice whispers that she's not crazy, that something is terribly wrong. Desperate for connection, Maria tries Sophia again. This time she writes a letter, pouring her heart onto the page. She tells Sophia about the loneliness, about Daniel's control, about the way she feels invisible in her own home. She doesn't expect a reply, but a week later, a postcard arrives. It's from Sophia, a picture of a quiet beach at sunset. On the back, in Sophia's careful handwriting, are just a few words. I'm thinking of you. Stay strong. Love, Sophia. Maria clutches the card to her chest, tears streaming down her face. It's not much, but it's enough to remind her she's not completely alone. Meanwhile, Daniel's secrets begin to surface. Maria overhears him arguing with someone on the phone, his voice low and urgent. I told you I'll get the money. Just give me more time. She finds receipts for expensive dinners, for things she knows he can't afford. She wonders where the money is coming from and where it's going. The more she looks, the more she finds evidence of loans, of missed payments, of a life built on lies. Maria's world grows smaller with each passing day. She moves through her routines like a ghost, afraid to make a wrong move, afraid to draw Daniel's anger. She dreams of running away, of starting over somewhere new, but she knows she can't leave, not yet. Not while Daniel still holds the keys to her life. One night, after a particularly tense dinner, Maria sits alone in her room, staring at the postcard from Sophia. She thinks about calling her, about begging her to come home, but she knows Sophia has her own pain to carry. Instead, Maria makes a decision. She will not let Daniel destroy what's left of her spirit. She will find a way to fight back, even if it means doing it alone. But just as she steels herself for what's to come, she hears Daniel's voice through the thin walls, sharp and panicked. No, you don't understand. She can't find out. If she does, it's over for me. Maria's heart pounds in her chest as she presses her ear to the door, straining to hear every word. One night, Maria overhears a phone call that changes everything. She stands in the hallway, heart pounding, as Daniel's voice drifts from the kitchen, low, urgent, desperate. I told you I'll have the money by Friday. Just don't call here again. She can't know. If she finds out, I'm finished. There's a pause, then a string of curses, and the unmistakable sound of Daniel slamming his fist on the counter. Maria's breath catches. She's heard enough to know this isn't just about late bills or a missed payment. There's something darker, something dangerous, lurking beneath the surface. The next morning, Maria moves through the house in a daze, replaying the conversation in her mind. She watches Daniel with new eyes, noticing the tension in his jaw, the way he flinches when the phone rings. She waits until he leaves for work, then quietly searches the kitchen drawers, the desk in the spare room, even the pockets of his jackets. What she finds chills her to the bone: letters from creditors, threats of legal action, and buried beneath a pile of receipts, a notice from the police. The words "fraud investigation" leap off the page, making her hands tremble. Maria sinks into a chair, the weight of betrayal pressing down on her. Her son, her Daniel, is in trouble, real trouble, and he's been using her money to cover his tracks, to keep his secrets hidden. The realization is like a punch to the gut, stealing the air from her lungs. For a moment, she feels paralyzed by grief and disbelief. How could he do this? How could the boy she raised, the man she trusted, drag her into something so dangerous? But as the shock fades, something else rises in Maria, a fierce, protective anger. She thinks of all the years she spent working double shifts, of the sacrifices she made so Daniel could have a better life. She thinks of Sophia, of the family that's been torn apart by secrets and pride. Maria wipes her tears and straightens her shoulders. She will not let Daniel's mistakes destroy what's left of her life. She will not let him take everything she's worked for. That evening, Maria sits at the kitchen table, the evidence spread out before her. She dials Sophia's number, her hands shaking. The phone rings twice before Sophia answers, her voice wary. "Mom, is everything okay?" Maria hesitates, then tells her everything: the phone call, the letters, the police notice. There's a long silence on the other end, and Maria fears Sophia will hang up. But then Sophia speaks, her voice steadier than Maria expected. "I'm coming home, Mom. We'll figure this out together." Sophia arrives the next day, her presence both comforting and awkward. The years of distance hang between them, but Maria feels a glimmer of hope. They sit together, sifting through the evidence, piecing together the truth. Sophia is cautious, urging Maria to be careful, to protect herself. "We need to gather as much information as we can," Sophia says. "If Daniel is involved in something illegal, we have to be smart." "We can't let him know we're onto him," Maria nods, her resolve hardening. She starts keeping a journal, documenting every suspicious transaction, every strange phone call, every time Daniel asks for money. She makes copies of the letters and hides them in a safe place. With Sophia's help, she learns how to check her bank statements online, how to set up alerts for unusual activity. For the first time in months, Maria feels a sense of control returning. The days are tense, filled with whispered conversations and careful planning. Daniel grows more irritable, snapping at Maria for the smallest things. He senses something has changed, but he can't quite put his finger on it. Maria plays her part well, acting as if nothing is wrong, all the while gathering the evidence she needs. Late one night, Maria and Sophia sit together in the living room. The old photo album spread out between them. They talk about the past, about Javier, about the happy years before everything fell apart. Sophia apologizes for leaving, for the silence that grew between them. Maria forgives her, tears streaming down her face. "We're together now," she says softly. "That's what matters." But the threat of Daniel's secret looms over them. Maria knows that if she confronts him too soon, he could destroy the evidence or worse, drag her deeper into his mess. She and Sophia agree to wait, to keep watching, to gather as much proof as they can before going to the authorities. It's a dangerous game, but Maria is determined to see it through. Each day, Maria grows stronger, more confident. She reconnects with old friends, quietly asking questions, piecing together the truth about Daniel's debts and the people he owes. She learns that he's been borrowing money from everyone he knows, spinning stories to keep them at bay. The more she uncovers, the more she realizes how deep the trouble goes. One afternoon, Maria finds Daniel in the backyard, pacing and muttering into his phone. She watches him from the window, her heart pounding. She knows she's running out of time. If she waits too long, Daniel could drag her down with him. If she acts too soon, she could lose everything. Maria realizes she must act before it's too late. And for the first time in months, she feels a sense of purpose cutting through the fog of fear. She wakes early, her mind sharp and focused, and begins to approach her days with the quiet discipline she once brought to the hospital floor. Years of nursing have taught her to observe, to document, to notice the smallest changes in a patient's condition. Now she turns those skills toward her own life, keeping meticulous notes on Daniel's behavior, his comings and goings, every unexplained withdrawal and suspicious phone call. She buys a small notebook and tucks it into her purse, jotting down dates, times, and details. She copies every letter and bill she finds, hiding them in a locked box beneath her bed. She even takes photos of Daniel's paperwork with her phone, careful to delete the images from her gallery and store them on a secret flash drive Sophia brings her. Each piece of evidence is a lifeline, a way to reclaim the control that's been slipping through her fingers. Sophia is by her side every step of the way, though Maria can see the conflict in her daughter's eyes. Sophia wants to protect her mother, but she's also Daniel's sister, and the thought of exposing him to the law tears at her heart. Still, she helps Maria organize the evidence, researches legal options, and gently encourages her mother to think about her own safety first. "You've spent your whole life taking care of everyone else, Mama," Sophia says one night, her voice trembling. "It's time to take care of yourself." Maria knows Sophia is right, but the guilt is heavy. She remembers Daniel as a little boy, clinging to her hand on the first day of school, his eyes wide with fear. She remembers the promises she made to Javier, to always keep the family together, to never give up on their children. But now, as she watches Daniel spiral deeper into lies and desperation, she knows she can't save him by sacrificing herself. The next step is the hardest, reaching out for help. Maria swallows her pride and calls Teresa, an old friend from church who now works as a paralegal. She explains the situation in careful, measured words, leaving out nothing. Teresa listens quietly, then urges Maria to speak with a lawyer she trusts. You need to protect yourself, Maria. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about your future. With Sophia's encouragement, Maria schedules a meeting with Mr. Delgado, a kind, soft-spoken attorney who's helped many families in the neighborhood. She brings her notebook, the flash drive, and a folder of documents. Mr. Delgado listens patiently, asking gentle questions, never rushing her. When she finishes, he leans forward and says, "You've done the right thing, Maria. We'll make sure you're safe. But you must be careful. If Daniel suspects anything, he could make things much worse." Maria nods, her resolve hardening. She follows Mr. Delgado's advice, opening a new bank account in her name only, redirecting her paycheck, and setting up alerts for any unusual activity. She changes the locks on the house quietly and without fanfare and tells Daniel it's for her own peace of mind. She even updates her will, making sure Sophia is listed as her medical and financial power of attorney. All the while, Daniel grows more suspicious. He notices the changes, the locked doors, the way Maria guards her purse. He questions her about her schedule, her phone calls, her meetings with friends. His tone shifts from concern to accusation, his patience wearing thin. "What are you hiding, Mom?" he demands one evening, his eyes narrowed. Maria meets his gaze, her voice calm. "I'm just trying to take care of myself, Daniel. Isn't that what you wanted?" The tension in the house is palpable. Julia stops visiting, claiming she's too busy, but Maria suspects she wants no part of the growing storm. Sophia stays close, sleeping in the guest room, always ready to step in if things escalate. The two women grow closer, their old wounds slowly healing as they work together toward a common goal. They share quiet moments over tea, remembering happier times, and Maria feels a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, her family isn't beyond repair. But the pressure mounts. Daniel's phone calls become more frantic, his temper shorter. Maria overhears him arguing with creditors, making promises he can't keep. She worries about what he might do if he feels cornered, about how far he might go to protect himself. She double-checks the locks every night, keeps her phone charged and within reach, and makes sure Sophia always knows where she is. Through it all, Maria clings to her dignity, refusing to let fear dictate her actions. She leans on her friends, her faith, and the quiet strength that has carried her through so many storms. She reminds herself that she is not alone, that she has Sophia, Teresa, and Mr. Delgado in her corner. She is not the helpless woman Daniel believes her to be. As the days pass, Maria's preparations come together. The evidence is organized, the legal protections are in place, and her support network is ready. She knows the confrontation is inevitable, that Daniel will soon realize he's lost control. Maria feels a strange sense of peace, knowing she has done everything she can to protect herself and her future. The day of reckoning arrives, and Maria is ready. The day of reckoning arrives, and Maria is ready. She wakes before dawn, her heart steady, her mind clear. The house is quiet, the air heavy with anticipation. Sophia sits at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea, eyes red from a sleepless night. They exchange a silent look, one of solidarity, of shared pain and resolve. Today, everything changes. Daniel arrives just after 9, his footsteps heavy on the porch. He enters without knocking, as if the house still belongs to him. He barely glances at Sophia, his gaze fixed on Maria. "We need to talk," he says, his voice clipped, already on edge. Maria nods, gesturing for him to sit. She's rehearsed this moment 100 times, but now that it's here, she feels a strange calm settle over her. Sophia sits beside her mother, a silent pillar of support. Maria places a folder on the table, thick with documents, her notebook, and the flash drive. Daniel's eyes flicker with unease. "What's all this?" he asks, trying to sound casual, but his voice betrays him. Maria meets his gaze, her voice steady. "It's time we talked about the truth, Daniel. No more lies, no more secrets." She opens the folder, sliding the evidence across the table. "I know about the loans, the creditors, the police investigation. I know you've been using my money to cover your debts, to keep your secrets hidden. Daniel's face drains of color. He glances at Sophia, then back at Maria, searching for a way out. You don't understand, Mom. I was trying to protect you. I just needed a little help. Protect me? Maria's voice rises, trembling with emotion. You stole from me, Daniel. You lied to me. You made me feel like I was losing my mind, like I couldn't trust myself. All those years I worked, all the sacrifices I made for you, was it all for nothing? Sophia's voice is quiet but firm. We know everything, Daniel. We know about the fraud, the threats, the people you owe. We know you've been lying to us for months. Daniel's composure cracks. He stands abruptly, knocking his chair back. You don't know what it's like. I was drowning, okay? I lost my job, the bills kept piling up, and I didn't know what else to do. I thought if I could just get ahead, I could fix everything before you found out. Maria stands too, her hands shaking but her voice strong. You had a choice, Daniel. You could have come to me. You could have told the truth. Instead, you chose to betray me, to use me. I am your mother, not your victim. Daniel's anger flares. You don't get it. You never did. You always made it about you, your sacrifices, your struggles. I was just trying to survive. Sophia steps between them, her eyes blazing. This isn't about survival, Daniel. This is about trust, about family. You broke something that may never be fixed. The room is thick with years of unspoken pain. Maria's voice softens. I loved you, Daniel. I still do. But I can't let you destroy what's left of our family. I can't let you hurt me or Sophia anymore. Daniel's shoulders slump. For a moment, he looks like the boy he once was, lost, scared, desperate for forgiveness. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't know how to stop. Maria's tears fall freely now, but she doesn't look away. Sorry isn't enough. You have to face the consequences of what you've done. Daniel's eyes dart to the folder, to Sophia, to the door. What are you going to do? Sophia answers, her voice steady. We've already spoken to the police, Daniel. They're on their way. You need to tell them the truth. It's the only way forward. Panic flashes across Daniel's face. He paces the room, running his hands through his hair. You called the police? You're turning me in? Your own son? Maria's voice is gentle but unyielding. I am doing what I have to do. For myself. For Sophia. For you, even if you can't see it now. Daniel collapses into a chair, his bravado gone. I never wanted this. I just wanted to fix things. Maria sits beside him, her hand trembling as she reaches for his. You can't fix things by hiding from the truth. You have to face it, Daniel. We all do. The sound of sirens grows louder, echoing down the street. Daniel's eyes fill with tears, his mask finally slipping away. I'm scared, Mom. Maria squeezes his hand, her own tears falling. So am I, but we'll get through this, one way or another. Sophia stands behind them, her hand on Maria's shoulder. The three of them sit in silence, the weight of the past pressing down, the uncertainty of the future stretching before them. As the police arrive, Daniel's fate hangs in the balance. The flashing lights outside the window cast blue shadows across the living room walls, and Maria feels her heart pounding in her chest. She stands beside Sophia, her hand gripping her daughter's for strength as the officers step inside. Daniel looks up at them, his face pale and drawn, and for a moment, Maria sees not the man who betrayed her, but the frightened boy she once comforted after nightmares. The officers speak gently, asking Daniel to come with them. He doesn't resist. He glances at Maria, his eyes pleading for something she can't give, not this time. As they lead him away, Maria's knees nearly buckle, but Sophia is there, steady and strong. The door closes behind them, and the house is suddenly, achingly quiet. Maria sinks into the nearest chair, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief. Sophia kneels beside her, wrapping her arms around her mother. For a long time, neither of them speaks. The silence is heavy, but it's a different kind of silence than before. One filled with pain, yes, but also with the possibility of healing. In the days that follow, Maria moves through her routines with a new sense of purpose. She meets with Mr. Delgado, who assures her that she's done everything right. The authorities are handling Daniel's case with care, taking into account his circumstances and Maria's cooperation. There will be consequences. There must be. But Maria knows she has done what she had to do for herself and for her family. The house feels emptier without Daniel's presence, but it also feels lighter. Maria reclaims her space, rearranging the furniture, opening the curtains to let in the sunlight. She cooks meals for herself and Sophia, savoring the simple pleasure of sharing food and conversation. For the first time in years, she feels truly at home. Sophia stays for a while, helping her mother sort through paperwork, making sure all the accounts are secure. They talk late into the night, sometimes about Daniel, sometimes about the past, sometimes about nothing at all. The old wounds between them begin to heal, slowly, as they share memories and laughter, as they allow themselves to be vulnerable with each other. One afternoon, as they sit on the porch watching the sunset, Sophia turns to Maria. "I'm sorry I left, Mom. I should have been here. I should have seen what was happening." Maria shakes her head, tears in her eyes. "You did what you needed to do, Sophia. We all make choices. What matters is that you're here now." They sit in comfortable silence, the air filled with the scent of blooming jasmine. Maria feels a sense of peace she hasn't known in years. She knows the road ahead won't be easy. There will be court dates, difficult conversations, and the long process of rebuilding trust. But she also knows she is not alone. Daniel's absence is a wound that aches, but Maria refuses to let it define her. She writes him letters, telling him about her days, about Sophia, about the garden she started in the backyard. She doesn't know if he'll ever read them, but it helps her to put her feelings into words, to offer forgiveness, even when it's hard. As the weeks pass, Maria finds herself growing stronger. She returns to work at the hospital, her colleagues welcoming her back with open arms. She reconnects with old friends, goes to church on Sundays, and even joins a book club at the community center. Each small step is a victory, a reminder that her life is her own again. Sophia visits often, sometimes staying for days at a time. They plant flowers together, cook new recipes, and talk about the future. Maria dares to hope that, in time, Daniel might find his way back to them, not as the man he became, but as the son she still loves. Justice has been served, but Maria knows that true healing will take time. She has reclaimed her independence and dignity, and in doing so, has given Sophia the space to forgive, not just Daniel, but herself. The family's wounds are exposed, raw and real, but there is a glimmer of hope shining through the cracks. Maria stands in her garden one morning, the sun warm on her face, and breathes deeply. She has survived betrayal, heartbreak, and loss, and she is still standing. She is not the same woman she was before, but she is stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to live on her own terms. But the hardest part is yet to come. Forgiveness. But the hardest part is yet to come. Forgiveness. In the weeks after Daniel's arrest, the house is quieter than Maria ever remembers. There are moments when the silence feels like a relief, a gentle hush after years of tension and fear. Other times it aches, a reminder of all that's been lost and all that still needs mending. Maria moves through her days with a new sense of purpose, determined not to let the past define her future. She starts small, tending to her neglected garden, coaxing life from the soil with patient hands. The act of nurturing something fragile and new brings her comfort. She finds herself humming as she works, the melody of an old lullaby she used to sing to Daniel and Sophia when they were children. The flowers bloom slowly, stubbornly, just as she does. Maria reconnects with friends she drifted from during the worst of Daniel's control. Rosa comes by with fresh bread and stories from the hospital, and soon their laughter fills the kitchen again. Maria joins a walking group at the park, where she meets other women with stories of their own, stories of loss, resilience, and hope. She realizes she is not alone in her struggles and that sharing her pain lightens its weight. Sophia visits often, sometimes staying for long weekends. Their conversations are tentative at first, careful not to touch the deepest wounds. But as the days pass, they begin to trust each other again. They cook together, try new recipes, and talk about the future. One evening, as they sit on the porch watching the stars, Sophia reaches for Maria's hand. "I'm proud of you, Mom," she says softly. "You didn't give up. You fought for yourself and for us." Maria squeezes her daughter's hand, tears stinging her eyes. "I'm proud of you too, Sophia. I know it wasn't easy to come back. But you did. That means everything to me." The words hang in the air, a fragile bridge between past and present, pain and healing. Forgiving Daniel is harder. Maria writes him letters she never sends, pouring out her anger, her sorrow, and her hope that one day he'll find his way back to himself. She prays for him, lighting a candle each Sunday at church, asking for the strength to let go of bitterness. She knows forgiveness is not a single act, but a journey, one she must walk at her own pace. As the seasons change, Maria finds herself growing stronger. She returns to work, her colleagues welcoming her with open arms. She volunteers at the community center, helping other women navigate difficult family situations. Each act of kindness, each moment of connection, helps her reclaim the parts of herself she thought she'd lost. Maria reflects often on what it means to be a mother, a daughter, a survivor. She thinks of Javier, of the love and laughter they shared, and of the promises they made to their children. She knows now that love is not always enough to save someone from themselves, but it is enough to keep going, to keep hoping, to keep reaching for the light. One afternoon, as she sits in her garden, Maria closes her eyes and breathes in the scent of blooming jasmine. She feels gratitude for the life she's rebuilt, for the daughter who came home, for the friends who stood by her side. She forgives herself for the mistakes she made, for the times she stayed silent, for the years she put everyone else's needs before her own. The path to healing is slow, uneven, and sometimes painful. But Maria walks it with her head held high, knowing she has survived the worst and found her way back to herself. She is not defined by betrayal, but by her resilience, her courage, and her capacity to love. Would you have made the same choices? What would you do if your own child betrayed you? Maria's story is one of heartbreak and hope, of loss and redemption, of the unbreakable bonds that hold a family together even when those bonds are tested beyond measure. But what about you? How would you handle such a betrayal? Family can be the source of our greatest joy and sometimes our deepest pain. Maria's journey reminds us that even the strongest bonds can be tested, and that forgiveness is often the hardest, most courageous choice we can make. But what would you have done in her place? If your own child betrayed your trust, would you have found the strength to stand up for yourself, or would you have chosen a different path? Have you ever faced a betrayal from someone you love? Maybe it was a child, a sibling, a parent, or a close friend. How did you respond? Did you find it in your heart to forgive? Or did the wound change your relationship forever? We know these questions aren't easy, but your story might help someone else who is struggling right now. We invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. What does justice look like in a family? Is it possible to rebuild trust after it's been broken? And how do you balance love and self-respect when the people you care about most let you down? Maria's story is just one of many. Every family has its secrets, its heartbreaks, and its moments of redemption. If you found yourself moved by her journey, or if you see echoes of your own life in her struggles, we hope you'll join our community. Subscribe for more true-to-life stories of justice, redemption, and the lessons we learn along the way. Remember, you are not alone. Whether you're facing a difficult decision, healing from a painful past, or searching for hope in the midst of hardship, there is always a way forward. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is to share our story and to listen to the stories of others. So, what about you? How would you handle such a betrayal? Would you choose justice, forgiveness, or something in between? We can't wait to hear your thoughts. And if you're looking for more stories that touch the heart and inspire the soul, don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next chapter. Your voice matters here. Family can be the source of our greatest joy and sometimes our deepest pain. Maria's journey reminds us that even the strongest bonds can be tested, and that forgiveness is often the hardest, most courageous choice we can make. But what would you have done in her place? If your own child betrayed your trust, would you have found the strength to stand up for yourself, or would you have chosen a different path? Have you ever faced a betrayal from someone you love? Maybe it was a child, a sibling, a parent, or a close friend. How did you respond? Did you find it in your heart to forgive? Or did the wound change your relationship forever? We know these questions aren't easy, but your story might help someone else who is struggling right now. We invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. What does justice look like in a family? Is it possible to rebuild trust after it's been broken? And how do you balance love and self-respect when the people you care about most let you down? Maria's story is just one of many. Every family has its secrets, its heartbreaks, and its moments of redemption. If you found yourself moved by her journey, or if you see echoes of your own life in her struggles, we hope you'll join our community. Subscribe for more true-to-life stories of justice, redemption, and the lessons we learn along the way. Remember, you are not alone. Whether you're facing a difficult decision, healing from a painful past, or searching for hope in the midst of hardship, there is always a way forward. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is to share our story and to listen to the stories of others. So, what about you? How would you handle such a betrayal? Would you choose justice, forgiveness, or something in between? We can't wait to hear your thoughts. And if you're looking for more stories that touch the heart and inspire the soul, don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next chapter. Your voice matters here.